we've had a very interesting 2021 when it comes to South Korean presidents. Two passed away. We barely talked about them. Chun Do-hwan, the really brutal dictator, passed away. No Tae-woo, the semi-dictator, passed away. And two South Korean presidents were in jail as well, Lee Myung-bak and President Park Geun-hye. And so today we're going to be talking about how we should feel about the special presidential pardon that was just given to President Park, not to President Lee. And so she's going to be released. Basically, she has been released, I think, for this New Year's. And she's coming out with her own book next week detailing how she felt so betrayed by the people that were supposedly her friends and her ride or dies. And that book is coming out next week, and it's already on the bestseller list when it comes to internet pre-orders. So she's already going to be spilling and dishing out the tea. So she served a total of 4 years and 9 months out of an original 22-year sentence that was reduced to 20 years earlier this year because it was appealed. And so she's been in limbo with all of this court action. She was fined about $18 million, well, with the exchange rate about $15 million. She had to sell her $6 million house in Gangnam, and then she got about a $3 million house in a suburb of Seoul, but then that was confiscated. So she lost her house, she had to sell her first house, probably to pay all the lawyer fees, and then she lost her house, and then they froze her bank account. They confiscated her bank account, which had about $3 million. So I think they figured that, okay, well, she has no house, she has no bank account, and then she had to pay a remaining balance of about $13 million-ish, and that got waived with the pardon, so she doesn't have to pay that anymore. So good for her, I guess. And she doesn't have to serve the remainder of her prison sentence. She was going to have to serve a full 20 years, and now she doesn't have to do that. She spent a total of 1,737 days in incarceration, and so that's the longest imprisonment, apparently, of any former Korean president. Why did she get pardoned? Well, according to President Moon Jae-in, who gave her the pardon, she was being pardoned because of national unity and harmony. Perhaps it was like a compromise. I'm thinking perhaps, there's always this thing of a backlash where presidents, once they leave office, most likely they're going to go to jail or their administration is going to get attacked. Perhaps if the opposition camp, if Yoon Suk-yeol gets into office, maybe they're trying to calculate like, okay, well, we let your girl out. Hey, why don't you be a little bit easy on us? I don't know if that's the best calculation, because now she's out, she's gonna be able to rally her troops, get revenge, because if you saw the picture when she came out already for medical treatment back in July, yeah, they had the excuse that she was really suffering from all of these medical impairments and she had to go get surgery, but you saw her face. Oh, she looked like she was already ready for battle. Damn, look at that laser eyes, boom, she was out to get people. In general, I think people on the one hand are a little bit more lenient when it comes to feeling that President Park wasn't personally, monetarily corrupt in terms of the corruption scandal. When the charges were brought against her and her friend, it was about $60 million in bribes that were tallied up by the prosecution. And the main prosecutor investigating was Yoon Suk-yeol, the conservative presidential candidate right now. So that makes an awkward situation because she's also conservative and she's supposed to help him get votes now. It's a little bit awkward. We'll get to that a little bit. But this $60 million is essentially a collection of bribes from the nation's top conglomerates that went to a sports foundation of her friend. And most people see that as like her friend being the beneficiary, and they don't really see the president, and it doesn't seem like the financial evidence really supports that the president was pocketing the money. So in that sense, I think people kind of look at the president as kind of like being used and not somebody who personally enriches themselves, as opposed to President Lee Myung-bak, who is still in jail and did not get a presidential pardon. And when asked about why he didn't get one, analysts were looking at that and saying like, well, the perception is that that president enriched himself more monetarily, and that the crimes that he was able to be nabbed on were kind of not even the full scope of what probably went on. But people still feel very betrayed on the far left because they still do not feel like she has paid enough for the crimes of the Seoul Ferry incident. And even though that was not the direct reason why she was impeached, it was definitely one of the underlying huge currents of an unresolved injustice that led to her impeachment. But of course, the main thing was the charges of bribery involving her friend manipulating things behind the scenes. But again, the line that gets crossed is usually some sort of emotion that population cannot handle. And in this case, it was a friend, a best friend, running the country behind the scenes and actually being like the president and kind of like putting the president in the corner. There were audio record. I think what it really shocked people were when it came down to it, initially what opened up this door was like, wait a minute, why is this woman writing the speeches? Of course, the president was saying like, oh, I was just getting some help on like, how to write the speech. She was just giving me some advice on like, like a speechwriter. But these audio recordings of them in meetings really showed how her friend was like dictating like how meetings should go, saying like, look, we're gonna be doing like running policies this way, that way, and even like telling like the president, oh, here, have some fruit, like as if like the friend was in charge and that the president should be like, having a little bit of a snack, shut up, eat something while I take care of business. And then the president would sort of like make some suggestions and she would shut down the president, as if like like her ideas weren't that good. And so I think people were just like, no. We did not elect this weirdo best friend who then it turns out that she likes, using all this corrupt money to buy buildings in Gangnam, getting her daughter into elite colleges unfairly, hanging out with boy toys, and, doing all these things that really pissed off the Korean public. Anyhow, so in a way, is it about national unity? Is it about, getting a pardon? There were thousands of people that got pardons, 3,094 people. And another very controversial figure that did get a pardon was a lawmaker that is kind of labeled as pro-North Korean, but he was also seen as a victim of political retaliation by President Park. So that was kind of like a pair, I guess, as a compromise. But President Moon said that, she's really in bad health. We need national unity to free this former leader. her impeachment essentially was a compromise for her to pay the price for the nation's footing the bill, essentially, for Samsung to be able to complete its merger and for Lee Jae-yong to maintain family control over the conglomerate. The conglomerate is too big to fail. It's 25% of Korea's GDP, but it came at the cost of hitting the National Pension Service. And part of this whole bribery, to, in a nutshell, to not bore you with the details, but was forcing the hands of the National Pension Service to approve the merger, because as a huge shareholder of the entities that could have sunk the deal, to then block the ability for the Samsung family to maintain control over the whole Samsung conglomerate, the Blue House under President Park Geun-hye railroaded the National Pension Service and forced the National Pension Service to say yes to the Samsung family's demands. And so, in a way, I would say like this was the atonement or payback for maybe the hit that retirees might have to now suffer for allowing the stability of the Samsung group to have. And perhaps this is just the completion of that. Lee Jae-yong had to go to jail. They had to pay the fines. And now he has been released. And now he's supposed to get, the Samsung empire back on track, get our vaccines, get our industry, get the whole semiconductor business back to save Korea Inc. President Park maybe is part of that kind of compromise to say, okay, that part is over. She's not personally being enriched. Although at the same time, her people, the people around her, her whole administration, that infrastructure of this kind of mindset of being like little dictatress did a lot of damage to the country, and personally me as well, where I lost my job because of her minions and her administration and the way that she ran her country. Yes, I was personally also affected and spent 4 years in also hell with the courts and seeing a dark side of Korea. But thank you for enlightening me and actually opening my eyes up to kind of like how the world works, and maybe in a bigger scope of things, it was actually a gift. But in a sense, yeah, you suck. But on the other hand, I do see how, in a way, she is not as bad as perhaps maybe some other leaders could have been. And I don't think her heart is in a bad place, and I don't think she was trying to be evil or greedy. I don't think so. On the other hand, she did lose control of the country, and I think that is something that even the people who do have a bad heart in Korea like really can't respect. I mean, in that way, that kind of unified the country, because the people with like the hopeful good hearts were just like, she's not doing a good job, and then the people with the bad evil hearts were like, she's not doing a good job. So in that way, totally, impeachment worked. You have, in a weird way, you have to kind of unify people, and she did. Anyhow, I think it's very complex. It's a very complex issue. So it was very complex about like the steps that led to her impeachment. And then I think it's very complex to feel about how, it is when you pardon a president. But I think in general, what the overall big picture is that if this continues to happen over and over and over again, where we send our presidents to jail, and it seems like a legitimate exercise, then perhaps the office of president in Korea needs to be reformed. Perhaps there is too much unchecked power, and that the checks and balances haven't been fully formed yet. And we should stop trying to blame the people and really analyze legitimately. Perhaps there is something structurally that needs to be added or amended with the office of presidency. Instead of trying to expect that there would be a perfect king or ruler that comes into the presidency and then rules with like perfect power, because right now still it's kind of like, oh, the precious. And once you get in there, that, you know, Lord of the Ring thing is just way too precious of a temptation to ignore. And so I think instead of trying to jail all of our ex-presidents over and over again, the focus perhaps should be on reforming that office and the checks and balances with the different branches of government. All right, guys, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that she should be out, or do you think she should actually have spent more time in jail? Don't know. All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.